Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. And to match up for my review I did yesterday, or maybe a few days ago, depending on when I get this video uploaded because I've been busy, today I have a review that goes along with that secondary review I did before this called Tales from the Darkside, the movie. And this came out in 1990, 1 year after the show was either canceled, ended, I don't know what we call it. And like I said, I just reviewed through the series, and I gotta remind you, not a fan of the show at this point. There's like maybe 20, 25 good episodes of the show, like I said in my review, that were the ones, the TV channels I watched it on, like Sci-Fi Channel back in the early 2000s, played over and over and over again. The majority of the show I had never seen before, and there's a lot of good reason for that, because most of the show is awful. It's not good. The worst of Goosebumps TV show from the 90s and, late 90s. Is better than the bad majority of this show, I would say. That may be controversial, but it's true. You're gonna have to deal with it. I'm just messing with you. Anyway, Tales from the Darkside, the movie, never played on TV, as far as I know, and I watched TV religiously. I grew up on the television the way kids younger than me grew up on the Xbox 360 and Xbox Live. I was obsessed. I loved horror growing up. I rented everything I could get my grubby little hands on. And this is one that was never at the Hollywood Video we visited, never at the Blockbuster Video we visited. And like I said, never on TV. And I wish I had seen it as a kid because I think I would have liked it way, way more. But this is the thing. I saw this movie one time, like 11 years ago, when I started doing YouTube a lot, my first movie review channel at the time. And I didn't like it, to be honest with you. But I hadn't seen the show in a long time either. They never played really reruns or anything at that point when I graduated high school and started making videos on that channel. And that's a shame because I really, really wanted to like this back then. But I gotta tell you, this time around, it's actually a lot better than I remember it being. I had a way better time this time around. I don't really know what changed, if I was just having a bad day back then. You know, you get out of high school and you're still kind of a teenager mentally. You're still kind of aggressively mean about movies and stuff. If something is even partially bad, you say it's the worst movie ever. That may have been the case for me back then. I'm not really sure. But at the same time, I want to make it very clear, this is better than the majority of the TV show. Even when the TV show is good, those episodes are typically great, you know, when it's good. This movie, in a lot of ways, is up in that par, sometimes beyond it, I would say. I don't know what was wrong with me the first time I saw the movie, to be honest with you, but this was a solid film, and I recommend it if you haven't seen it before. Like the TV show, it is an anthology horror movie, and it's about an hour and 30 minutes or so. It's directed by a man named John Harrison, and John Harrison is actually the guy who directed the Dune TV movie adaptation years ago that was kind of the remake of the horrible David Lynch one. I don't think his was much better. I watched a little bit of it. I think I made it like 20 minutes in and realized it's not the movies, it's just I hate Dune, period. Not a fan of it. Even saw the newer ones. I wasn't a fan of the first of the newer ones. I haven't seen part 2 yet. Visually beautiful, but not a fan of it. So, the film has a lot of writers involved here. I don't know who wrote the wraparound story. It could have been John Harrison. It could have been something IMDb is not listing as somebody already listed here. I don't know, but I gotta tell you, it's pretty well done as a movie, overall. I guess I'll start with the wraparound, overall. The wraparound is about Matthew Lawrence. Yes, Matthew Lawrence was in this, and somehow I didn't know it back in the day. This is Jack from Boy Meets World, and I love Jack from Boy Meets World. He's Sean Hunter's older brother in the later seasons because they kind of botched the lore of some of the characters. Sean has like hidden sisters and hidden brothers and stuff. Jack was like the new brother twist later in the later seasons, and I love Jack. Anyway, Matthew Lawrence is a little boy in here in a very Hansel and Gretel situation with this crazy blonde-headed lady that is going to eat him, and she's prepping things, she's cutting carrots, making salad and stuff, and she has this real long pan inside of the oven that kicks off the movie's tone in general. It's a very tongue-in-cheek movie with a lot of people who have been in Tales from the Darkside from back in the day in this movie again. Like, I think Steve Buscemi was in it at one time, in the show I mean. He's in here quite a bit in that first segment we get. There's a lot of people. Christian Slater is in here. Not in this particular segment, the wraparound thing. But a lot of people that were kind of what is it, alumni, is that the word? They come back for this, and I thought that was kind of nice. Even Romero is involved with this. I think he may have written the adaptation of Stephen King's story in here, but I'll get to that. But I like anthology horror, and this movie was way more in the tongue-in-cheek humor type of way. That first wraparound story really sets that up. And the little boy, Matthew Lawrence, is trying to make this woman chill and not kill him just yet by telling her these tales from the Darkside in a book that he has in that it's kind of like a dungeon attached to a kitchen. I don't know how she got somebody to design that, and it didn't look fishy when you put iron bars on that wall, but oh well. It's goofy, late 80s, in this case early 90s cheese that works really well. So the tales he tells her are the segments we watch. The first one here is called Lot 249, and apparently it's based on an Arthur Conan Doyle story, the guy who created Sherlock Holmes. I love Arthur Conan Doyle. I don't think this was like a Sherlock Holmes story. I'm sure it was its own thing. He wrote a lot of stuff, apparently. But this is a mummy story, and I loved that. It has Christian Slater and Steve Buscemi kind of throwing down in here at one point. Christian Slater, by the way, I love. Just became a recent fan of his, and realized really quickly why I'm a fan of his. He is clearly the long-lost dad of the YouTuber The Flick Pick. I think that's the running gag all of us have been saying for years. But I just realized in recent, like the last year or so, how much these two look alike. If you haven't seen the Flick Pick's YouTube movie reviews before, for the love of God, go find his channel. He has two, John Flickinger and the Flick Pick. The dude is fucking hilarious, dude. I could watch his YouTube channel all day long, especially his old movie trips and stuff. But anyway, then you have this mummy story here, Lot 249, that is so fun, and I love mummy stories. Many of you know that. I'm totally down for that. This was a fun story. The ending of it is very much like the old TV shows type of thing. I was waiting for the credits to just pop up on the screen like they used to at the end of the show with the twist, and it was very fun. I really liked it. I thought it was a neat spin that you don't really see on something like mummy stories here. Very enjoyable. The second story in here was, and by the way, I don't even know which one of the stories would be my favorite. They're all kind of right on the same par for me, which is very uncommon. Usually you have any kind of anthology show or movie where it's very half and half. You have filler, crappy episodes to make up in between weeks of really great episodes a lot of the time. And very rarely do you find a movie or a show that doesn't do that, you know? This second story was one that I thought would be my favorite. I don't think it goes far enough to be my favorite, you know what I mean? But it's called Cat from Hell, and it's based on a short story from Stephen King, and I believe Romero was the one who adapted this to this movie. And it's kind of cool, Romero came back for this as the creator of the show. Stephen King is a wild mind, and I don't think I've ever read this story. I don't know what book it popped in, but I can't figure out if the familiarity is because I've seen this movie before, or if it's because I've read the story before. I don't think I've read that story, though. Anyway, William Hickey, who plays Uncle Lewis in Christmas Vacation, you know, Aunt Bethany's husband, the one that's always smoking the cigar that burns the tree down and everything, the one that, like, looks at Aunt Bethany and is like, the blessing! I fucking love William Hickey. He's one of the funniest fucking people ever. Don't ever watch Hobo's Christmas, just because he's in it. One of the worst Christmas movies I've ever seen. He's a crippled man, an old man, in a wheelchair. And he's very mean-spirited in general, but William Hickey was a good-ass actor. I stand by that. He is so funny, dude. He's great in here. He's kind of the reason I would almost consider Cat from Hell my favorite story in here, but kind of, the story isn't, again, going far enough for me to justify that. But basically, he hires a hitman to come in and kill this cat that's in his big mansion. He's a very rich man. He lives alone in a very cold, eerie-looking house. But he has a cat in the house that just kind of showed up one day, and his sister, who used to be alive, and her best friend, who used to be alive that lived there as well, brought the cat into the house, and now he can't get rid of it. And he doesn't know what's up with the cat. He's tried to do everything he can, and he's scared that the cat is going to try to kill him next. The hitman is like, what do you mean? It's just a cat. And he's like, no, I'm convinced this cat is trying to kill everybody. The cat shows up and gets in the hitman's lap as they continue their conversation. Hitman thinks it's harmless, Then it gets pissed off and it cuts him up and it goes hiding in the shadows again. And it's a black cat, so it's kind of hard to find. But William Hickey tells him, I will pay you all this money if you kill this damn cat so it can't kill me. And it's a very humorous, tongue-in-cheek story. Kind of a Tom and Jerry story, but the mouse is a human, you know? That would have been great. Did they call that guy Jerry? That would have been great. I didn't even pay attention to that when I was thinking about this. That would have been great, great, great. Anyway, so the hitman is struggling to kill the cat, and it's really fun, but again, I don't think it goes far enough. There is some gory stuff at the end of this segment that I think worked really, really well and looked really, really good. Again, if you were having an off day or if you didn't understand kind of like tongue-in-cheek humor, and I don't mean that in some talk-down, pretentious way, I just mean if you're not into that kind of thing and really don't get that type of humor, I could see somebody not liking this movie, or this segment for that matter, and that might explain why I was put off at the time when I saw it, even though I grew up on this kind of thing, like Tales from the Crypt and stuff. But this segment goes in a very strange direction in its finale, just to let you know. But it was kind of fun, and I really recommend it for that alone. It's almost like a cat slasher movie, but without as much blood as I need it to be. But it was fun, nonetheless. And then you had the final story in here, called Lover's Vow, and the writer of it is Michael McDowell, who did a lot of stuff, man. Let's talk about some of his stuff. He created Beetlejuice, and I believe he also adapted, to some kind of sense, The Nightmare Before Christmas. He also wrote Thinner from Stephen King as a movie. Jesus. But Beetlejuice's creator did a segment for this movie. That's fucking rad. And I think Beetlejuice came out like, what, the couple of years before this? That was, what, 88? Or am I crazy? Was that after this? I don't know when Beetlejuice came out. Anyway, Lover's Vow is very, very predictable. It's very... What's the word here? I guess it's kind of slumpy in the middle of that segment, and we're talking like 20-minute shorts here. It's kind of slumpy in the middle, and I think that anybody with a brain could figure out where this was going. You know what I mean? Basically, here's a guy who looks super familiar to me. I cannot figure out where I know him from, but he looks super familiar. And he's at a bar, a friend's bar, one night, and there's another guy in there that passes out from being drunk. And this main character is actually an artist, and his career is failing. He went to this bar anyway to meet his agent, who dumps him, tells him he can't be his agent anymore. And they decide to leave the drunk, passed-out guy in the bar that night. And the owner and the main character go to leave, and they're out in the alleyway locking up and everything. And some kind of monster shows up, and it attacks the friend in a very horrifically gory, brutal, in-the-dark fashion. Rips his hand off when he had his pistol out, throws it across the room at the other guy, the main character. I think it clawed him, and then it ripped his head off and stuff. It was really good for practical effects, even though it was pretty quick. And the main character is just shocked by it. The monster comes over to him, and it is one of the best animatronic puppet mannequins, whatever we're calling it, that I've ever seen in a movie. For an animatronic puppet thing, it was phenomenal for a practical effect. It looks incredible, you know? Horrific, but just really, really great in quality. It's the reason I watch horror films with like animatronics and puppets and this kind of thing like this, because the artistry into going behind the scenes and making something like that is truly incredible, and it doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. It's like watching Terrifier, and even if you're not into gory movies, if you can't appreciate the artistry of how somebody had to make those things and how well done they were, and a lot of them being tongue-in-cheek, kind of like Tales from the Darkside type of humor, the kind of artistry behind that is incredible, and you need to appreciate it. You have to, you know? But this monster tells him, hey, you know what? I'll let you go if you don't tell anyone what I look like, don't draw pictures of me or anything. And if you do that, I'll let you live, but I'm going to keep an eye out on you. And he runs away in fear because it leaves him alone. And he's pretty sure that he has like this paranoia that this thing could still be around in the shadows, watching him and stuff. And when he's running away, he comes across a young black woman who's very pretty. And he basically kind of tries to help her out. She thinks she's going to get attacked by him. And turns out he's not, obviously. He's just scared. It seemed like he kind of just doesn't want to be alone after what he just went through, watching his friend die, who may even be his best friend, I guess. And I guess he's kind of afraid of being blamed for the murder, too, and forgets about the guy in the bar who does get blamed for the murder by the police. But he and this woman run away that night. They go back to his apartment so she can make a phone call. I think she was trying to find a cab or something. You can't really catch a cab in this neighborhood either because it's such a bad neighborhood that the artist lives in. He's very poor, and she begins to fall for him. They have kind of like a little romance thing. And again, the second middle part of this movie is just very slumpy. It's really focused on the relationship aspect. If you can't predict the ending, you'll get why it's like that. But whatever, man. It's really not that great, to be honest with you. But that's basically the ending, and then we have the ending of the wraparound for the movie. But Tales from the Darkside, the movie, has really fun jokes, especially in that William Hickey, A Cat from Hell storyline. It has a lot of great stuff like the mummy monster, the demon monster, gargoyle thing, whatever it is at the end in the final segment that I talked about. And those practical effects look incredible. I don't know how this movie got the budget it had to make such a great film. And frankly, if the show had never existed and we had just had this movie, that would have been completely fine, because the movie's better than the majority of the show, I would argue, because of the quality, because of the budget, the directing style of it. John Harrison is not a great director. He's really good here. And he's the guy who did the Clive Barker Books of Blood first adaptation ever. And that movie kind of sucks. You know what I mean? I even like the Hulu one a tad bit better, and that's not great either. But this movie overall has some really good things in it that was done well. And having Romero involved, having Stephen King's story adapted to here too, if you had that at your disposal, why would you not do that? There was a lot of King fans back then, just like there is now. But anyway, really fun movie, very well made, very well shot, even though the majority of it's in the dark a lot of the time. Good performances from a lot of people who used to be alumni to the series, who are coming back to make this. And I'm surprised we never had like a Tales from the Darkside Part 2. A lot of people consider this basically to be Creepshow 3, apparently. And that's kind of cool, you know? But this movie really stands out from a lot of the show. And again, when the show is good, it's really great. But the majority of the time, it's fucking awful. You know, almost unwatchable awful. But this movie really shines through in a lot of ways, and I recommend it if you haven't seen it before. I try to stay spoiler-free, but this is the kind of movie that it would be fun to go into a spoiler discussion about. So anyway, I really like the Tales from the Darkside movie. It was much, much better than last time I saw it, the first time I saw it. It just really landed in a lot of ways, you know. This kind of looks like that John Carpenter Mountains of Madness movie, or whatever it was called, the one that's like the H.P. Lovecraft-style movie. Anyway, the music is good too. That's kind of the next thing I wanted to bring up. I think the best song in here is probably, for me, the one in the third story in here, the third final segment. It's very, like, basic, you know, as a theme for that particular segment story. It's kind of mopey and sad, as a synthy type of song from the 80s and 90s in this case. But it really works, and it was really catchy, you know? But overall, if I had to rate Tales from the Darkside, the movie, I would probably give this it's bordering on about a 4 out of 5 stars for me. But I'm kind of leaning towards a 3. It's somewhere in there. A review rating doesn't have to be definitive, you know? I can say it's bordering between these two, but I'm kind of leaning towards a 4, dude. It's a really fun movie for what it wants to do, and I think it gets it right. I really do. Now, I think that there's things like, again, in the show, there's episodes that are better, but I think the majority of Tales from the Crypt, for me, as a TV show, I think are better than this movie. That's just me, from what I remember of it. Remember, I saw Tales from the Crypt when I was in high school. I have not seen it since then, even though I own all the seasons right down here. But I love Tales from the Crypt. And I think personally, because of the budgets they had Zemeckis involved, whatever, I think that show is better than all of Tales from the Darkside. I think most people would say that about that series. I think the newer Creepshow TV show, the last, 4 seasons it has, have been really good off and on. There was one season, I think it was season 3, that was pretty rough, if I remember. But the majority of Creepshow, I think, is much better than Tales from the Darkside, in and out. But that's just me. I would love to hear if you have any other anthology horror out there that you like. I know there's a lot of stuff people recommended in my series review for Tales from the Darkside, and thank you for doing that. But have you seen the movie? If you haven't, take out the time and watch it. You don't have to watch the show. at all to appreciate it, but if you had, I think you'll appreciate it a little bit more. But the movie is good. If you like this kind of thing, it's going to be right up your alley. I think you'll dig it. So anyway, Tales from the Darkside, the movie, 3 to 4 out of 5, somewhere out of there for me. I could see myself rewatching this more often than the show episodes that I like. For real. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I kind of have that itch to want to watch it again. But I have so much of my backlog I want to watch throughout 2025, still working through that I'm like, I'm going to hold off. But I could see myself watching this at Halloween again this year. Or before that, maybe in the summer as like a nice summertime movie. Kind of like the Tales from the Crypt movies. They always came on TV during the summertime. But anyway, have you seen it? What do you think about Tales from the Darkside, the movie or the show? Let me know all that down below. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.